Hey everybody, Steven here, and today I'm looking at a new webcam from EMEET. This is the Pico Plus. Now they have two versions. They have the Pico Plus here, and then they just have the regular Pico. This one has a slightly larger sensor on it compared to the regular Pico. That's the only difference that I can see between the two when it comes to the specs, which I'll talk about the specs here in a second. But just for context in terms of what I'm going to be doing with this video, I'm using a Sony FX30 right now to record this. That's a larger camera, and here I'm using OBS in order to record this. The size difference between the two is quite large. Now this is a Sony a6400. It's not as big as my FX30 here, but if you were to look at the difference between the two, obviously there is a very large difference. So for any streamers out there, content creators, maybe you travel a lot, maybe you want a multi-camera setup, this thing is going to be much better for that. You can actually tie 4 of these together through their software, and so you can have multiple angles. Again, the size difference being the big draw, because you can travel with these and not bring a bunch of heavy duty cameras with you. And here you're still going to get 4K 30 FPS or 1080p 60 FPS. So the big thing that I'm trying to see is how's the quality with this, because the Sony FX30 here is obviously going to be a really good quality camera in terms of the image quality and the stuff that I can do with it. But if this can get pretty close, I think for a lot of people the draw is going to be, again, this is much smaller. I can travel with a lot of these and I can still do my multi-camera setup. So let's go ahead and cover the specs first. I just want to talk about what this thing has in it. It does have a Sony sensor. It is a 1/2.55 sensor. The aperture is an f1.8. Again, you can do 4K 30 FPS or 1080p 60 FPS. We have a 1.5 digital zoom. The field of view is 73 degrees. Focus method is actually AI based, and we will look at that here in a second. And then the distance, it can be 10 centimeters to infinity, essentially. No HDR with this, but then the video codecs, YU-Y2, and then the MJPEG here. It does have 3 built-in microphones. We will do a test for that here in a minute, as well as just showcasing what the software can do. And then for those microphones, the frequency response is 100 hertz to 10 kilohertz. It is the voice core microphone tech here. Optimal pickup range is going to be 8 feet. Obviously, it's not an extension coming out of this thing. So if you do need an external mic, you can use that. But again, if you're trying to slim down on everything that you're traveling with, we have the 3 built-in mics here, and you can see those at the top. It's probably going to be harder to see on this. I don't know if my camera will even focus on that. Yeah. And so we'll talk about the focus here in a little bit, because this thing struggles a little bit more in terms of the focus when I'm using OBS, unless it's just right in front of the camera. For the stuff that you get in the box here, so obviously we're going to get the camera. We have the dual lens with that, which is really, really nice. So for the cover, because if you notice there's no built-in here, it's just this little magnet. This holds right there. So you have that built-in magnet if you wanted to use the cover. You do get a tripod for this, but there isn't any attachment where you could put this on top of your monitor if you wanted to, so you would have to make sure that you get one of those. But this thing will actually extend for the legs. And then we have our 1/4 threading on this, so pretty standard. So if you actually wanted to screw this into a different type of like microphone arm or anything like that, so you can move this around more, you do have that option. And then for the cable, we have a USB-C cable here. We do have a good length to it. Where is it? It is 1.5 meters with this, so roughly, what is that? Is that 6 feet? Or is that 3 feet? I don't know, it's got a lot of length to it. It's not 6 feet, it's gonna be more like 3 or 4. And then we do have the USB-C to USB-A adapter for this as well, so you are covered with that. And then we're gonna get our user manual. This does come with a 2-year warranty according to the manual, which I like to see. And then let's go ahead and look at the back here. This is going to be where you will have that plug-in, if it'll actually focus on that. And so again, this is more the struggle with this. It's actually just giving me the reflection, that's why it's turning around. So here's the camera up close. Come on, camera, focus for me. Let's see if I tap here. There we go. The autofocus on the FX30, I can adjust a lot of the settings But with this, it's just using AI on the EMEET Pico Plus here. So it's actually easier to use than the Sony FX30 as far as like going into settings and adjusting things and all of that. On the back, that's where we have that USB Type-C plug-in. On the bottom, that's where we'll find that threading, which it's already gonna zoom out on that. So we've covered the specs here. Let's go ahead and switch over now to using the Pico Plus so you can see the difference in the quality. So up until now, this has been the Sony FX30. So you can compare the footage between this portion and the next portion and just see, can you tell a massive difference? And again, we're taking into account the size of this other camera and the price as well, because the Sony FX30 is not cheap compared to this, which is going to be a lot cheaper. And again, you can run multiple with them if you're doing any type of multiple angle shots for your content, streaming, anything like that. So let's go and shift over now to the software with the EMEET using the Pico Plus. So this is going to be the EMEET Pico Plus software here. This is the first tab when you bring this up. This is actually the camera running right now, right in this box. Now, I'm still using OBS. I've had to crop this in because you cannot adjust the software in terms of the size of it. So you can't blow it up to a full window. You can't even drag and scale it. It is stuck at this size. So if it looks a little bit fuzzy or not quite as sharp, it's because, again, I've had to crop this in, where in person it looks much cleaner and much sharper. But down here we have the device. This is where if I had multiple devices, I could actually click on those multiple devices and pull up the settings for those. I have the preview currently turned on. For these settings here, we have the different resolutions and the refresh rate for that. If you'll notice, 4K, 2K, 1080p, 720p, all locked in at 30 FPS through their software. But through OBS, when you get to 1080p, you can adjust this to the 60 FPS. Here, if we wanted to actually flip the image, we could do that. By default, it looked like this. I switched it around because if you were sitting across from me, this is what visually it would look like. And we could also flip it this way if we needed to. These are going to be great for content creators where they are doing live streams and they're showcasing products. Filters down at the bottom. So we have customize, default, bright, nostalgia, blues, cold, and vivid. Over here, intelligent optimization, backlit environment image optimization. If we turn this on, I have a spotlight on me right now. It's going to wash everything out. So right now, I don't need to use this, but there would be certain situations where it would be very beneficial to use that. In terms of the field of view, you can change it, but notice right here, unavailable at 4K resolution. So let's just drop it down to 2K. Now I can actually change this. What is this going to do? It's going to zoom it in, right? So that's that 1.5 times zoom. So I can bring it here, here, and then all the way in. So cropping this in from the 51 up to the 73. So you have that control there. And then let's just drop it down to 1080p, 30 FPS for right now. Effect. I have to leave it on customize if I want to adjust the next tab. So here, if I was to switch it to something else, I cannot adjust that, only in customize. Anti-flicker, 50 Hertz or 60 Hertz. Image adjustment, you can lock this or have it automatic. Automatic in terms of the EV. If I undo that, I can change how bright or dark this is going to be. That would be completely black. We don't want that, right? And I'll just turn it back on to automatic. And then we have sharpness, saturation, and tone. For the color balance or the white balance here, if I want to change this to warm, I can. And I like the fact that they're giving you the number, right? So 7500K, or I can zoom it all the way over here to 2300K. Or again, just leave it on automatic, and you can lock these down. So once you find your settings, lock that down. And that's going to be really important when you have multiple of these cameras, because depending on the angle, you may want to adjust certain things, get everything exactly where you want it, lock it down, and then you can kind of set it and forget it. And then we have assistance. Focus metering here. Selected area, central area, human face. Right now it's on human face. Focus. We can have automatic or not. And here I can change far. So that's going to be the background, right? Or near. Now remember, this can do the 10 centimeters here. So if I put this all the way close, it's super close. You can see that right there. Hold this little guy right there. Look at it. That looks really good. And let's go back to automatic. Snaps right back to me. Now, I can spend a lot of time with the Sony FX30, try to work on the different settings within the camera, and I know a lot of people are going to have that knowledge, but here, this is set it, forget it, like obviously some adjustments in the software, but extremely easy to use, where the Sony FX30, there's going to be a learning curve to that. So for the focus, I think this is better and easier to use over the Sony FX30. And then audio mode, live streaming, noise reduction, original. Right now, not going to use this. I'll test that in the OBS software, but when I do test that, it will just be by default on live streaming. Last thing I want to point out here is if I go to the overall settings for the software, this is where if we had multiple devices, we would see them pop up as well. And then I can go in, lock them down, assign them the number, and then again, make any changes, but get them exactly where I want them to be, and then just set it, forget it, and then you can go right into your live stream. So this has been the Pico Plus software here. Let's go to OBS, and then with this, I'm going to blow up this image so you can actually see it a little bit better, and then we will do the sound test for the 3 microphones on this. All right, so back in OBS in terms of the full image, still using the Pico Plus with this. This is actually the built-in microphones here. Did some recording, did some testing. I had to actually turn the gain down quite a bit. It tends to peak and then it gives you that popping noise. So I may actually still have that in this. I would need to spend a good amount of time to try and figure out like where's the sweet spot when it comes to this microphone. Maybe if I had some more software, things like that, I could actually edit this down a little bit more to make it sound more rich in terms of the quality as well. But if I was in a bind, I think this it would actually get you by. I think it would be okay. What I'm curious about is I only have one of these. So if I had multiple, if I had the other 3 cameras set up, I'm going to have to say, hey, I want you to use this one just based off proximity, and that one's going to have the best sound for me, and then actually make any changes to that you wanted to. But I think for most people, if they're live streaming a lot, they usually have an external microphone. Like this is the Shure SM7B that I've been using for the other portions of this video. I'm probably going to use that, right? But again, if I'm in a bind, I think this would actually get you by, and it does a decent job for being a built-in microphone or a webcam. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to shift back now. I'll be back with the Shure SM7B, and I want to just cover my final thoughts on the Pico Plus here, because I do think this is a really, really good webcam. All right, so I'm back using the Shure SM7B, and my final thoughts on this. I think this is an incredible webcam. Like the size is so small, yet it's delivering top-notch video quality. And comparing it to my Sony FX30, like it's pretty close, because you're having to deal with compression and things like that when it comes to the DSLR camera to whatever software that I'm using. So obviously it's not going to be like a one-to-one. When I hook this thing up, it doesn't look like the video that I get when I'm actually recording for my different product reviews. So running through the software, obviously it's diminished with the quality. It still looks really, really good, but considering the price, the size, like the versatility, those things, like the Pico Plus gets me pretty close for a fraction of the cost. So for, again, any streamers out there, whether that's, again, product stuff, but I'm also thinking like just a regular streamer where you're doing video games or something like that, or like if you're a musician, multiple angles and you're actually recording, like I would rather, because you're hauling around large equipment, have a bunch of smaller cameras that you can set up. And just ease of use with this thing. The big draw, video quality, size, the autofocus. Again, if I'm putting something close, like that looks sharp, crisp, bringing this into frame. And actually now I can show you the Sony FX30. So here's the camera this is the Sony FX30 that I was just using. Here's the A6400, just size-wise. Obviously the lens is going to be much larger on this one just based off what I was using, but like look at this thing. I'm gonna haul this thing around, like, or I can take this little, it's this big, right? It's not big at all. And I can have 4 of them versus this. So when you're on the go, again, multiple camera setups, this is just going to be a home run that you can use this to get great video quality without sacrificing a lot of other things that you see with certain webcams, where a lot of times when you get it, if you're changing over from a high resolution to a low resolution, it may not be sharp or crisp. There's certain things where you can adjust it in the software, but it may not be exactly where you want it to, or you just don't want to spend a ton of time doing it. By default, I think this thing looks really, really good. So this gets a huge thumbs up from me. In terms of the price, $89.99. If I get any discount codes or anything like that, I will put that in the description. I think this thing is well worth it. What's the Sony FX30 cost? Anywhere from $1,500 upwards of $2,000, and that's before you get a lens and all these other things. So there's a huge price difference with that, and they have different packages as well. So I think they have some multi-package deals where you can actually get a discount. So it's like, no, I want 2, 3, 4 of these things. You can actually get a little bit of a discount for ordering kind of in bulk with that. So this has been the Pico Plus webcam. Huge thumbs up, like I said, from me. This thing is incredible. I would definitely take this over using a DSLR camera if I'm a content creator that's on the go, if I need a multi-camera setup, if I want something that is easy to use, this is going to be the way to go here. If you guys have any questions about this, let me know in the comment section. I will have a link for this in the description if you want to pick it up. And thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the review and comparison of the Pico Plus to the Sony FX30 and just showcasing the software here. If you guys like the video, hit the like button for me as it helps the channel out. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, hit the subscribe button for me. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.